Hey everybody, welcome back to Tenza Motorsports. Today we're going to be rolling the rear fenders of our S54 wagon project. Now these style 67s are quite large and these are wider and I believe have even more aggressive offset than the fronts do. So the fronts fit just fine, but the rears don't. So we're going to have to come up underneath here and roll this. This should be the same process for sedan and wagon, and I've never really worked on a convertible, so I can't say for sure on those two cars, but for a sedan and a wagon, this process should work. So the first thing we're gonna do is lift up the car, remove the wheel, and then there is a strip of rubber, and I'll show that, we have to remove. Now, I'm a little bit nervous to show this project because I am repainting this car, so the paint I can damage, basically. I can do kind of whatever I need to do to make sure these fit, and then we'll clean it up and paint it. If you want to keep your paint, this is going to be a very difficult project to do. Now that I think about it, I don't know if you can roll well enough to get these to fit without damaging the paint, because I rolled the other side a lot. So we're going to be using a Schwaben roller. These fender rollers that you find online, the cheap ones are really cheap, so you gotta be really careful about that. I wanna go over a failure point that I found on the Schwaben one that I did have to fix, and hopefully it's a permanent fix, so I'll go over that, but so far it's been really good. If you're gonna be doing a lot of fender rolling, I would not suggest buying one that's like 30 or 40 bucks from like eBay or Amazon or whatever. Go and spend a little bit of extra money. I'll have the Schwaben one linked in the description below. But so far the Schwaben fender roller has been really good to me. And in fact, on that note, let's go and take a look at that before we get started on this so that I can show what happened to the fender roller. So if you buy one of these and you find yourself in the same problem, it's a really easy fix. So let's go take a look at that. So here is the Schwaben roller. Now my only problem I had was back here. So before there was a lock nut, a nylon lock nut, and then a cotter pin. And what happened was as I'm spinning this and it's pulling on it, it actually started to spin the nut, and then it went right over that cotter pin and just spun right off of it. So what I did was added a second nut, and then I actually locked them onto each other so it still freely spins. The only downside now is it's gonna start hitting this piece. So what I'd like to do eventually is take the nuts back off and then take a little bit of material off of one of them so that it'll actually clear where it mounts onto the hub. I thought about actually modifying this, but I don't know if I'm gonna do that. I think modifying a nut that I can replace later is probably the best way to go about it. So this is pretty straightforward. You put it onto the hub, and then you've got your height adjustment, and then this right here will change this angle, and then this right here will change your roller angle. So it's been pretty easy to work with it, other than that one failure point, and I just went over to my spare parts and found a nut that fit, and that was it. I fixed it that same night. So I'm excited to get this done to the other side so I can actually take this car for a drive without everything rubbing in the back. Here's the side that's already been done. Now, this looks really aggressive, and it is because there was Bondo over this, but I rolled this out, and you can see that it is quite a bit larger, and then the little lip that's in the back here has been smushed so that the tire can actually come up and fit. I do have marked on here, from here to here, I need to roll a little bit more, but the tire wasn't rubbing when I went and took it for a drive. Actually, I tested this one by sticking this tire up on the curb, and then the rest of the car was on the street still. So this was like all the way up underneath there, and this was clearing the sidewall. So very happy with this. I'm hoping that I can clean this up and make it look nice. I got a couple dents here, so I'm gonna have to find a way to fill those or pull them or something. And then obviously the rear bumper is touching just a little bit, so I will probably pull that out away from the car and see if we can't get it to mount away from it. So M wheels on a non-M car. Let's go get the driver's side done. So here we are with the wheel off. The car is jacked up using the scissor lift. Now I'm gonna be using a blowtorch, mainly because I'm not super worried about this paint. It's not a very good paint job. So what we're gonna be doing is warming this up really warm and then pulling out this piece of rubber. The rubber from the other side looks like this. And this sits back up behind here, and we'll make it so that you actually can't squish this metal right here because this rubber won't condense. So once we put enough heat in this fender here to get this rubber piece out, which runs from here all the way to about right here. I think it goes further, but we don't need anything past maybe about right here. Once that's done, we will rig up the Schwaben fender roller and then start to roll. So we're gonna basically do a section at a time. So I'll be rolling like this section here, and then this section here. and this section here. And you don't have to go all the way down, but about this area right here, depending on what your wheels look like, should be just fine. So that's the plan. It's not super complicated. This is probably the biggest thing that a lot of people don't talk about, is getting this piece of foam rubber out of there, because it just doesn't, I'm squeezing it right now as hard as I can and it just doesn't move. So if you don't get this out, you won't be able to roll your fenders. So here it is, this rubber foam piece is out of here. I heated it up using a blowtorch. Again, if you want to keep your paint, just use a heat gun, but you're gonna need quite a bit of heat in this metal here to get this to come out. And then I grabbed something like this, a really aggressive looking pick, and then I was able to scrape back up behind here and get that out. So mine goes all the way down to about right here is where it stopped. So now that that is out, we're gonna mount up our fender roller and start manipulating the fender where we want it to sit. You do have to keep heat in this, especially if you wanna keep your paint from cracking. Again, if you're using a heat gun, just be careful, because this will happen to your paint even if you have a heat gun, if you leave it on there for too long. And then we'll be putting the fender roller on. We'll be using these right here, which come with the fender roller. These match the shape of your lug studs so that you can actually bolt the fender roller onto the hub. All right, so you can see the wheel is on right now. I actually rolled a bunch of this fender and got kind of the angle that I wanted, and then I knew I wasn't done, but I wanted to see how much was left. So I put it back together and went and drove it. The reason I did that is because it's currently raining right now, and I didn't want the car to get wet. So I had to kind of do a bunch of this stuff off camera real quick before it really started to rain. So I drew with some marker. This section right here needs to come out a whole bunch, and then this section right here needs to be worked on. And if you come over here to the other side, I did the same thing, make sure that I know exactly what needs to be done. So on this side, I need to work from here to here. So this bare metal is one of the reasons why I didn't want it to be out in the rain. And then obviously I'm not running a hood at the moment. So I just have to be careful about how much rain gets on the car, because it's really going right now. All right, everybody, well, that is the fender flares rolled. It really is a straightforward process. So just get the fender roller on there, and I tried to roll it at angles as well. I wasn't just pushing straight out, because what I was worried about was that this lip that we've got here was actually squishing and coming down further. And so you kind of want to come at kind of a diagonal angle too. So you want to push it up and in. So that was what I was able to get done with both sides. It looks really good. So I'm just gonna be cleaning it up. There is a little bit of a rolled lip here, which is kind of weird looking, but we'll get all that cleaned up and smoothed out, so when you paint the car, you won't see anything like that. So if you're doing this with paint, you wanna keep your paint, like I said, use a heat gun and just go real slow with it. If you're in my situation here, you can just torch it, get it real hot, and then just run the roller back and forth. And it worked really well. I'm not touching anymore. There is a nut and a stud. I have the nut here, but there's a stud that sits right up back behind here, and that in this case is actually gone. There's a bracket that used to hold the bumper. I believe that that's what that nut is for. I may or may not be using that system, because I am going to be moving the bumper kind of up and out. So I'm not sure exactly what we're going to be doing, but there's a bit of a gap on this side versus the other side where it looks a little bit more flush. So we're gonna be playing with the rear bumper a little bit more. The rear bumper needs to be removed from the car and cleaned up, because it's in pretty bad shape, especially along the back. So there's gonna be some more finessing and trying to get this to fit flush and look right. So I think we'll be able to get that done. I'm not too worried about it, but even here I can see that I've rolled this fender out probably about 1/4 inch, even back here. And where you're rolling all the way forward to about here, that puts you about right here on the bumper. So this bumper will rub depending on the wheels that you've got. So you'll either want to push this out and or pull your bumper off and then trim it so it's really just a skin of the bumper right here, where all of the innards of the bumper have been kind of gutted in this little section right here. So we're gonna look into doing that as well. But I've been really happy with the Schwaben kit. Like I said, all you have to do is just put those two nuts together. I'm going to take them because they're both the same thickness and they actually hit that plate. I'm gonna take one of the nuts and grind it down so it's about half the thickness it was originally, and then that way I'm not having to worry about it getting locked up because it's hitting other parts. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward process. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down in the comment section below. You can in fact get M3 wheels to fit on your non-M car. It just takes a little bit of fender rolling. So thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Check out our Patreon link in the description below if you want to see early ad-free access of our content. Also check out our Instagram. We do giveaways and we pull the names from our follower list. So if you want to be part of any giveaways, all you have to do is follow us on Instagram. If you stay followed, you'll always be entered. I appreciate everybody so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.